Hey, this is Ron, and welcome to the Standing Wolf Archery channel. Our guest today on this podcast is the co-founder of the Push Archery. He does incredible work for the traditional archery community. He brings in hunters and bow hunters from all across North America into his channel and community. His school, the Push Archery, is just a phenomenal source of material for anyone who's looking to get into traditional learning from experts. We're going to be talking hunt stories. We're going to be talking about Lancaster. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things that you guys who are into traditional archery are going to love to hear. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Matt Zirnsak from the Push Archery to the Standing Wolf Archery podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ron from Standing Wolf Traditional Archery. You're listening to Push Stories, and we're joined by our guest today, Matt Zirnsak from the Push Archery. Matt, it is such a pleasure to have you.
Man, pumped to be here. Thanks for having me on.
That's awesome. I was just saying, I just saw your last video. For whenever you guys listen to this or watching it, Matt just posted awesome hunt, three shot buck.
Yep, three-shot buck.
Lucky number 3.
That's right. So you can't get it right the first 2 times. You better get it right on the third.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I'd love to ask right off the bat is, he's been in the trad game for so many years. I mean, for those who haven't seen your YouTube stuff, you guys are just crushing it. You're covering the wide spectrum of trad, and I just love it. I absolutely love it. Huge fan. I'd love to find out when did this all first start? Like, when did the hunting career begin? Like, when did your desire to hunt? Like, how did it all start from you? Was it from a kid? Were you taught from a kid, or like, give us the backstory? How did it all begin for you?
That's a great question. So I grew up doing upland bird hunting with my dad. He had was training Springer Spaniels and doing dog competitions and regional competitions and whatnot. So I was always in the field, always like a woods kid, if you will. And then moved here in Pennsylvania. I moved around the East Coast all growing up with my dad's job. And then we moved to Western Pennsylvania my freshman year in high school. And I was just your typical rifle hunter for big game. I was small game hunting. And then I would spend 2 to 3 weekends a year basically sitting in the same tree on the same hillside on the back 40 of the same property, right? Yeah. Just kind of your weekend warrior with rifle season. And didn't really, I wasn't a huge big game hunter, big time small game hunter, and I still am. But the drive and desire for archery hunting whitetails didn't come in until I just picked up my first bow. And all my buddies were getting together on Tuesday nights during the summertime, and I wanted to go hang out with them. And they were getting together at our local bow club, but it's a bow hunting club, 24 target outdoor course, just really awesome, cut your teeth on bow hunting type of organization. It's called Oneida Bow Hunters. And I wanted to go, but I didn't have a bow to participate. And every time I was around my buddies and they got their bows out, they were shooting like 1980s Hoyts. Every time they draw back and fire, something was flying off the bow. It was just, this is back in like 2003. So they're like using 20-year-old equipment. They're not taking care of it. So that was my introduction to archery. And I'm like, I don't want that. Whatever that is, that does not look fun. But I did mention to my wife, like, I want to get into archery, want to go hang out with the boys. So my desire to get into archery was purely stemming from hanging out with my buddies and having a few beers during the week. And I said, I'm not too sure about compounds just because I was exposed to really old equipment. And I told her I thought recurves and longbows were cool. And that's what started it. That next Christmas, she gifted me my very first recurve, and down the rabbit hole I went, and I can't find the bottom of it. That's for sure.
If you weren't already married to her, you'd know right then she's a keeper.
That's it. She's a keeper. Exactly. Exactly. So that's kind of where it all started for me. And then from there, I never carried a rifle in the woods for big game ever since, and have been chasing whitetails with my bow. That's my passion.
Yeah, it seems like you're in the right environment too, especially with the bow club. Like more than enough people to pick their brains, and it just seems like that's such an advantage too. Starting. I mean, that's massive.
Yeah, having those people there were nice. Now, granted, I didn't know them very well, so I feel like I still was relying heavily on whatever content was available online. I was doing so much researching on whatever YouTube was out there, and then like Trad Gang and Trad Talk, those online forums, was primarily where I was like drawing as much of my influence and mentorship to help me along my way.
Right. I mean, with the content wise, especially with YouTube, it's come such a long way. And obviously what you guys are doing is a major contributor to that. I'd love to actually ask you, because 1.8 million views on YouTube, buddy.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a grand slam home run.
I'm still blown away. I still don't know who's watching. I think it's getting like 500 views a day. And I still don't, like, who's watching that?
So whoever is not sure what we're talking about your film, The Push, and was that what spearheaded everything? What got the ball rolling with everything? I mean, really, what was the driving factor to wanting to make that film to begin with?
It's so funny when I think back to the start of that and how it started. It was so organic. Like we didn't set out, Tim and I didn't set out to like become a brand or create a company. Right. Tim just kind of reached out to me after college. We went to high school and college together, and he reached out and was like, hey, he's devout compound hunter, super successful. And he's like, I'm ready to take the next step. And I had mentored a lot of people over the years. And so I just brought him under my wing and put him through the protocol, had him watch all the Masters of the Bear Bow videos, had him come over and shoot all my bows, and then, send him home with some stuff and just started working through the form and mental aspect of traditional archery. And at some point throughout that mentorship, we realized he has really good cinematography, videography skills. I had the knowledge. I'm a little bit of a ham in front of a camera. So let's just throw a video together. And so we started storyboarding this video. Like, what would this be? And I was so frustrated with my start because I had a rough go of it. And it just took me so long to like figure it out. And it was frustrating to me that you'd have to go to 5 or 6 different websites, talk to a bunch of different people. And it would take you so long to be able to have half the confidence to be able to choose the right equipment to shoot your first arrow. And so there's no like one-stop shop, like a soup to nuts 100 level class on like everything you need to know if you're kicking the tires about traditional archery. And that's what we did. And it ended up turning out to be a 2-hour video. And we launched it out there, and it went viral as viral can go in a niche community like traditional archery. And one video turned into 2, turned into 7. And then we launched a podcast, and it just kind of slowly, organically grow from there.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great way to put it, to like one-stop shop. I mean, for whoever hasn't actually watched it, I'll put the links and everything in it too. It's so good because it's so comprehensive. Like you said, like right from when you want to decide what kind of bow you want to use, right to tuning, and you cover everything. So it's the perfect gamut of information. I can understand why 2 hours is probably doesn't do it justice.
there was a lot left on the cutting room editing floor. There's no doubt.
Don't want to overwhelm people too much, but that's that's perfect. It's the best way to start. I mean, I highly recommend the video. I was actually just watching it the other day.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it. I was like, I gotta watch it again. So it's awesome, man. I really
every few years I scroll all the way back there and I'll put it on. My boys like to watch the bloopers because the 2 kids that are in front of the camera are my oldest 2 sons, and they're 14 now, which is crazy. And you look at that in the video, they're like little squirts. It's great. So
little time capsule.
That's right.
That's awesome. And so from the video, like you said, everything snowballed from there. So let's talk about the P.A.C.K. How did the P.A.C.K come about? And maybe you could talk about some of the advantages of being a P.A.C
member,
obviously, and
sure.
what you get out of it, and let's glorify the P.A.C. Let's just talk.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take any opportunity for shameless plugs. But yeah, the P.A.C. is the Push Archery Center of Knowledge. So we in 2016 we launched the original video, and then in early 2017 we came out with the podcast. And then through the podcast we were meeting all these great minds and coaches of the sport. And we got involved with Joel Turner, who at that time already had an online course published, Controlled Process Shooting. And so I think it was 2019, we decided to open up our own school and offer Joel's course in there, as well as work with Tom Klum, worked with John Demmer, and those were our first 3 online courses. So essentially what it is, it's an online school strictly focused on expediting your traditional archery learning curve. So we want to offer courses involving your mental side of the game, form, equipment, tuning, whatever you're needing information on. We have a masterclass course available to you. And I think now we have up to 8 courses available in the Push Archery Center of Knowledge. So it's just slowly grown. And when you join, you just head to thepusharchery.com, and it's a springboard into the Push Archery Center of Knowledge, the online school. And whenever you join any one of our courses, we either some courses offer 2 types of payment plans, a one-time fee or a monthly payment plan for 4 months. just trying to make it a little bit more accessible. But once you pay for it, you have lifetime access to it. And not only do you have lifetime access to it, you have unlimited views. You can sit there and watch a single module or a single lesson over and over and over again till you get it. There's no limit on views. And then also any future updates. So we want to put a best in class product out there. And so our coaches, as they're continuing to coach people, they're getting better and better at their craft of coaching. And they might figure out a better way to teach a lesson plan or a specific subject. So we'll, every year or so, 2 years, we'll like be together with these coaches and we'll refilm some modules or film additional new modules, and we throw them in and add them to the course. And if you purchase it, you get all of that stuff automatically updated to your profile, free, live as soon as we click go. So a lot of lifetime value, in our average course price is about $200.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, obviously YouTube's got a lot of wide range of stuff, but you're getting into the real nitty gritty. You're going hyper detailed for those who really want to take it to the level of mastery ultimately, because you have the best teachers, right?
You're exactly right. You know, you put a YouTube video out there, and the Push is our original film is odd that a 2-hour video gets that many views, because typically, you know, when you're on YouTube, you're just looking for something that's, what information am I looking for right now? Is it 2 minutes or less? Can I consume the content and be on my way? So the online school is for more of a classroom style learner that wants to dive into the minutia of these movements and of these mental processes and protocols, or tuning, if you will. And most of these courses are 8, 10, 12 hours of content in these courses. So it's definitely like a masterclass level of learning for sure.
Yeah, that's perfect. What would you say out of all the, I mean, it's kind of coming off a bit unbiased, and I don't want you to be putting that, well, what would you find is, like, if you're going to dive in, what's probably your most popular course, and which one do you feel is the one that you would personally recommend right off the bat?
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to give you a political answer to this, but I always answer that question with a series of questions to whoever's asking me, because I don't want to point you into just blindly into a class. So I usually reciprocate with, what's your weakest part of your game? Are you, so for instance, at 15, 20 yards, do you struggle to hold a consistent group? Right. Is your group always shifting around the target and varying in size? Do you just find the biomechanics, the form uncomfortable? Are you always searching around for an anchor? And if that's the case, then I typically push people towards solid archery mechanics or roots, which are form-based classes or online courses. But if you in the backyard can hold a really tight baseball sized group at 15, 20 yards, and it's always consistent on good days and bad days, but when that buck stands out in front of you, or you got your buddies around and you're about to shoot at a 3D target, do you just black out? And in that case, then I kind of push you guys towards control process shooting. Let's go attack the mental part of your game. And then the same goes for if you're looking, like, if you feel like your shooting's there, but your results on the target or results at game animals isn't there, it might be tuning. You know, you might have a borderline edge tune and you don't understand the equipment enough, and we just need to suck up some of those variances and making a really wide window of tune, a really forgiving setup for you. Then I'll push you towards our new tuning course.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's hard not to be political and not say the wrong answer. Yeah, I think that's a good way to answer it too.
Sure.
The perfect politician answer.
I get asked that question a lot. Like, which course should I buy? I'm like, well, let's have a little deeper conversation. I don't want you to buy something and not be completely satisfied, or at least I want to take your potential as an archer and just maximize it with a single course purchase. And then once you have that mastered, move on to the next course and let's attack the next weakest part of your game.
Totally, man. I mean, starting from when you started and now, like, where do you see trad going? And like, do you see it going in like a more growth oriented like space? Like, how do you see it kind of evolving, or like, what's your viewpoints from like where you stand as someone who like talks to a lot of high level coaches and who are in the bush, like, as often as you are too? Like, where do you kind of see things going, and where do you see that now?
Yeah, I see interest at an all-time high. I mean, I know we kind of peaked. We went through this renaissance period in that 2016, 2017, 2018 period, like that 3-year window there. We just saw a huge influx of archers here, but it slowed down a little bit. But the amount of growth that we're seeing as a brand, because our brand is like a bridge brand between compound hunters and traditional archers, and we're just helping expedite the traditional archery learning curve. That's always been our MO. So we're always getting people that are kicking the tires of traditional archery, knocking on our door, asking for questions, asking how to get started. And I haven't seen those inquiries slow down. And that's kind of always been my gauge of, where are we as an overall community? And I think interest level from new archers is still up there. It's really at a high level. So I wouldn't say it's in a bad way whatsoever. I think the future is really bright for traditional archery.
Yeah, you know what? I hear a lot. Now, I'm not gonna name names or anything like that, but I hear a lot of people coming from compound to trad. It seems to be something I'm hearing more and more and more of. Like, why do you think that is? Why, in your opinion, why do you feel that that's kind of a movement that's slowly starting to etch into this?
Yeah, I think just in our daily lives, we're being infiltrated with technology at everything. And so, just it's human instinct. Our species is like just striving for comfort in every aspect of our lives. And we just keep relying on technology to take those barriers, those uncomfortable moments out of every aspect of our life. And I think that, when you start crossing the line into sites that are aiming for you, and just as the sport continues to get easier and, 50, 60, 70 yard shots become normal, I think there's just people that the technology infiltration just kind of stops with traditional archery. Right. I mean, obviously we have modern limb technology, modern arrow technology from raw materials, and we're doing things with our equipment and achieving speeds and forgiveness in our setups better than ever before. However, no matter what, it's still the archer having to put that shot on. I mean, a 20 yard shot with a trad bow in the whitetail woods for me is a long shot. I like them 20 and under, and no level of technology is going to take that off of me as long as I'm shooting a single string bow. Right.
Exactly. That's really well put. I like that a lot. I think, personally, I always found it as I'm very survival minded too, being a father and having a family, with a lot of stuff that's been going on in the world. It's always in the back of my mind, just from that type of perspective as well. Because my friend introduced me, his dad and him were compound shooters and moose hunters and that. So that's kind of how I got introduced to archery altogether. But so I don't want to knock it. I think it's really cool.
Sure. Absolutely.
But from a survivalist point of view, I always looking at what kind of things could go wrong out there? Whittle down the things, the mechanized stuff that could fail out in the woods. And I think it's probably the best way to go about it, but that's just my opinion, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. From a survival perspective, it's like the perfect weapon.
Yeah. I love it. Well, you know what? I'd love to hear, obviously you've logged plenty of time in the woods, and shows all the bush stories. What would come to your mind if you were to think of maybe the top 2 all-time hunts, no matter what the circumstances or what year, what really comes in your mind is the ones that you just would always either talk about around a campfire or would want to share? Which are the top memories, top hunts that you could share with everyone? Man. In detail, of course.
Good question. I would say there was this one hunt, and this kind of embodies my approach to archery and how I approach hunting whitetails here in the eastern side of our country. This was quite a few years back, long before the push started, and I was in a climber, and I was after this one buck. We called him 2x4, and we had multiple years of experience with this buck, and he was a big 5x2. So he had big 5 points on his left side, and then the monster points coming off these big up at this green field at the top of this rise. And it's starting to get dark. It's getting to the point where fading light. I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, I got 30 minutes of legal light left. Got to get this thing going. It's right about late October. So things are starting to heat up a little bit. And I look up into this green field, and there he is. He's chasing around like 5 different does. And so I decide, all right, I'm going for it. I'm getting down. I'm going after this buck. So I get down, use my climber, get down, hit my boots, hit the ground. And I start sneaking up along this cornfield, and I start closing the distance. And this is a blind stalk, so I can't see what he's doing because I'm like creeping along the edge of this 8-foot tall cornfield. And I get to the very corner, and I have a little bit of CRP that I can get down on my hands and knees. So I do so, and I can see him. I finally laid eyes on him, and he's chasing these does around, and he's probably about 40 yards up this hill. Lights fading fast. I'm belly crawling up through the CRP, and I get to the edge of this green field, which is just clover. So there's no cover. So I've ran out of cover. He's still 35 yards away from me. and he peels off and starts chasing a doe, and she kind of jukes him and comes right down past me at 5 yards, running right by me. And he comes chasing right behind her, and he's standing there at 13 yards broadside. And so I have an arrow nocked, and I raise up my bow, draw back, and I shoot. And I don't know what happened, right? It happened so fast. He goes running off. I mean, hard. Like, I hit him. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I just pulled this off. I've been after this buck for years. Goes plowing through all the cornfield. And as soon as that happened, it started raining pretty good. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. It's alfalfa or clover or whatever. And blood's not going to be there. So I get up and I start searching around. I can't find anything. So I meet up with my buddy, my brother-in-law. This is on the family farm. And I'm like, I think I might have hit him. I told him the whole story. We got all excited. So we decided to just, let's back out. Let's come back in the morning. And it was torrential downpour at that time. Let's just come back in the morning and see what we see. And so we search around the morning, can't find him anywhere. So I go back to the same spot that I shot this buck out of. I'm like, you know what? We can't find my arrow. And I'm like, I'm just going to shoot another arrow. And it was a pretty steep hillside. I'm going to shoot it into the hillside and see where this buck is, or see potentially where this arrow might be in the field. So I draw back, aim right where this buck was standing, shoot. My arrow ricochets, goes straight up over the hill, and just disappears on the other side of the hill. And I'm talking like it went 70 yards, just all the way up. So I'm like, are you kidding me? So I went to go grab that arrow. It's sitting 6 inches away from the arrow. I missed the buck that night. So that story, I think about that buck. That buck haunts my dreams, that I was that close to putting my tag on this buck. And I know it's a missed story, right? And we all have these missed stories, but it's just so wild to me that taking that next practice shot just to see like where that arrow potentially was stuck in the hillside. No wonder I couldn't find my arrow, because I was convinced. I'm like, I had to have hit him. This arrow is nowhere to be found. I'm in this wide open field. Like, I can't find my arrow anywhere. That's why, because it skipped 75 yards on the other side of the hillside.
So what did you hit? Did you hit like a rock or something?
Yeah, just a rock. Yeah, it was must have just a rocky hillside. Yeah, it was crazy. It was wild. It'd
be crazy if you hit the same rock too.
I know, right? I mean, and that thing was so far away. I mean, it was on the other side of the hillside, and they're like 6 inches apart, sticking in the yard. Unbelievable.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it was wild.
What would you say is your most successful harvest?
Oh man,
I mean, they're all a success, but what in your mind, like, would you say like the one that really was most meaningful to you?
I guess it would be my first one. I mean, that's one that's always going to stick in my mind. I like I said, I was really had a really tough time at the start of this thing. I missed 11 deer clean before I got my 12th deer. And so that was in the first 2 seasons. So I'd always been really good about getting in the red zone of these deer, and always super aggressive hunter, using ghillie suits, using hang and hunts type style, just run and gun. That's just how I've always hunted them. And I was getting into these red zone of these deer, and I just kept shooting high on every situation. I mean, I have some wild stories about having bucks coming through my first couple seasons, and I'm in a ghillie suit and they're 10 yards away. Don't even know I'm there. I just could not put it together from a shooting perspective whenever the moment was there. It just took me so long to finally break through that. And on that 12th time, I tucked in on the edge of this cornfield in this little green field that separated. It was a bumper crop between the wood line and the cornfield, and it was another uphill scenario, and got settled in there. And about an hour before last light, I had this deer come out, and it ended up being a button buck. And he did this little 12-yard circle around me and standing there flat-footed. And I just made determined decision, like, it's going to happen this time, like no more screwing up. And I put that arrow right where it needed to go, and it actually dropped him. I hit him high in that front shoulder and dropped him, and he kind of drug himself down the hill. And I was able to put my first tag on a whitetail with a bow and on the ground with traditional equipment. It was just so awesome. Completely from that point on, like, it just erased all those bad memories of all those 11 misses before that. And then everything, the floodgates opened up from there. And from there, it was just success after success. And obviously I've had my ups and downs. That wasn't the last, those first 11 weren't the last year I missed. But yeah, it was really, it showed me, it proved to me for the first time, like, this is tangible, this is doable. And then I went to work from there and started up in my game.
What do you feel? Did you ever think back and kind of analyze the first 11? Like, what did you think about if you did, like, did you, or if you were to think back now, was there anything that you could like recall that was a problem that last one, or was it just a mindset switch?
Yeah, it was definitely a mental thing because, G. Fred Asbell says it so well that the mind's eye is attracted to edges of things to identify what you're looking at. That's like what your subconscious eye is like really paying attention to. So if you're an instinctive archer, which I was at the time, and you don't pick a spot, then the very natural part of your subconscious to attach itself to was that upper back line. It's so prominent as a deer's walking through the woods. And that's why I was missing 100% of those over top of the back, is because I just wasn't picking a spot in the heat of the moment. I was completely blacking out. It's just, coming back to anchor and trying to get my crap together. And my subconscious was just attracted to that higher edge of that deer, and an inch or two of drop from the deer. That's all it takes, right over the back.
It's pretty interesting too, but like subconscious and that type of aspect of hunting, how there's so much, I guess, like, you got to put yourself in the position enough times, like you said, and everyone has to go through to get that comfortable, that level of confidence to even just bust that shot accurately.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. And you start getting into like learning what your brain needs and what you need to do from a self-talk perspective. Like when the shot's becoming imminent, like that last 50 yards of that deer coming in towards your shooting lane, I think is so important. And that's what I think where my biggest failure mode was, because it was just like oh crap, don't screw this up. Like that was the self-talk. It was just continually like, don't mess this up. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. You get yourself like balled up into this ball of anxiety, instead of just like calming yourself down and going through a good self-talk protocol. And it just, like you said, you just had to be there. You had to be there and put yourself in that situation over and over and over again, and keep grinding, not give up until you could finally figure out what works for you.
Right. I mean, that's great advice. And I guess if I were to ask you, what would you feel? I mean, because you're neck deep in it, the coaching and teaching aspect of it, what would you feel for someone who's maybe not even considering hunting with trap, but just hunting in general? I mean, because you have the experience from both ends of the world, right? Both perspectives. But what's the best advice you can give for someone who's looking to get into it, maybe who has been wanting to do it, but now they feel is the time with the state of the world? Maybe they're more edgy about things and want to start getting in the woods.
Sure.
Like, what's the best advice you can give to someone who wants to start breaking into personal hunting, and then maybe using what they've learned or that into trad scenarios?
Yeah, I am a big proponent of people starting off with small game. I think you can learn so much about game behavior, how to be sneaky in the woods, just all of that, just the whole processing of wild game meat yourself. All of that starts just in this miniature animal, right? Whether it's squirrels or cottontails or whatever you're wanting to go after. So anybody that's kicking the tires about hunting in general and this lifestyle and pastime, I definitely push people towards just getting a 22 off the rack, or, go talk to your granddad and pull his 22 out and go out a field, get your hunting license. Super cheap, super inexpensive for just a small game license, and go after it that way. I think people are just, prone to diving into big game hunting because it's awesome. It's incredible. And why wouldn't you want to do that first? But I think you can learn so much about all the aspects of hunting, the whole life cycle of what it takes to be a hunter and a sportsman. I think you can learn through small game hunting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's something I'm looking forward to doing with my kids. My oldest son is 12, and my youngest is my daughter who's 6. But she's the one who's expressing the most interest in
awesome.
taking up bow hunting. So I'm going to take her out turkey hunting. But the small game, like you said, I think is the most. And it's just, you learn so much about it. I think you're totally right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's something you can do forever. It's so low pressure too. I think whitetail hunting, throwing a kid into the deep end of whitetail hunting, especially with a bow in their hand. I mean, some kids are wired for it. Some kids are just obsessive about it from the time they want to, see their dad walking off the back porch with his bow in his hand. And I get it. And those kids they have the ability, they have the desire, they have the passion for it. Let them jump into the deep end. But I think there's a whole other population of kids that are being thrown into the deep end when they're not ready. Guys that are out there with their 8-year-olds and, shooting whitetails. That's awesome. Like I said, for that small percentage of kids that are ready for that, but a large majority of them, it's just such a high pressure situation. You have this large animal standing in front of them. It's just a whole lot easier to introduce the impact of, game management. You're actually taking a life of an animal and what you do with it. It's just, you're one step removed whenever you're looking at something like a squirrel or a rabbit, and it's a whole lot less high pressure. Like that shot happens and they might miss their first squirrel. No big deal. There's going to be another one, right up the path. So let's autocorrect. It's so much easier for you to kind of keep them interested, keep their mentality at a very positive point, rather than you hunt hard for an entire season. You finally get them an opportunity at a deer and they blow it, or they put a bad shot on. That might be it until next year. So they have to live with that, right? It's just nice to be able to get reps fast and quick with small game, because there's always one on the other side of the next tree.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, especially with kids in general too, because especially you can get really discouraged really quickly, and that wrong experience, like that pressure to hit it, could really impact them long term, where now they have anxiety about taking a shot on a big game animal, and then that just kind of, you go right back to the psychological aspect, and that's something you have to overcome, which can be pretty tough down the road, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing about small game hunting is you don't have to be quiet, and you typically don't get super cold too. So they can make noise, they can move, right? And it's not like boring at times. So that's always nice. Those are nice 3 advantages for small kids for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. What I'd love to know actually too is, kind of sticking in the same topic, but if you were to start right from the very beginning, from trad, going right back, and you could be your own coach, you're coaching yourself, what advice would you give yourself? Like, how would you, what would you teach yourself, knowing what you know now, to be either better, faster? I guess it's kind of a hard thing to answer, but
I like it. I like it.
How would you go about it?
Yeah, that's great, because I think I didn't get into the biomechanics, like the actual form side of training, until after I started engaging with a lot of these coaches. So I spent a good portion of my early archery years ingraining less than ideal form, that at least for my biomechanics. So I still deal with like a high bow shoulder just from all of those years of doing it improperly. And then obviously not running true back tension. Very few of us actually run a shot with true back tension when we first pick up a bow. It's just not intuitive to increase tension in that direction when you're at full draw with a bow in your hand. It's just not natural. So I think the one thing I would do is the importance of a solid holding position, and that backside, that string side of the shot, getting all that oriented proper, as well as having a good, strong bow shoulder from the beginning. Excuse me. I think those would be the 2 things that I would really focus in on. Right. That would help me, because I'm still dealing with those demons right now of doing it for so long, incorrectly.
Not having someone to point these things out and from the very beginning could be pretty detrimental too. I mean, you could wreck your shoulders. There's a lot of things that down the road you didn't think at the time was going to help or do anything to you, but then it catches up one way or the other, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, I think I'd probably also get into aiming a little earlier too. Spend a lot of time, chasing myself a little bit and not understanding the true flight and trajectory of my arrow. And I became just such a better instinctive aimer after I kind of went into a dedicated gap method for a few years, and then coming back to instinctive archery. I was much better after that foray in like a dedicated aiming system.
Right. I mean, are these because you do a lot of the competitions too, right?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say you've taken? Has there been a competition where you've come away saying, "Oh shit, I really should focus on this next time"?
Always. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever competed in a competition that I didn't come away like, okay, these 3 things, I know what I'm working on for the next couple of months till the next one. That's for sure.
Yeah. Was there like a particular time where like you really walked away saying, "Oh shit, this really changed. This would change next round. This really screwed up," or the lesson that you learned from it?
Yeah, Lancaster's the pressure cooker. That's the one coming up here in January. It's indoor. You're shooting 600 rounds. It's just everyone's there on the line watching everybody else. So it's just high intensity. And that one I have mental learnings from that one, like how to execute my shot under pressure. And it's just so beneficial, because when you look at a standard bow hunter, like a truly high pressure shot, you're lucky to get 2, 3, maybe 5 of them a season, if you're pretty successful. But You go to Lancaster, you get 60 of them in a row in one day.
Right.
That's pretty awesome. That's a lifetime of bow hunting right there.
That's crazy. How do you even train for that type of pressure? Or can you actually train for that? Yeah, no worries. For those listening, I'm going to commentate this one. Matt's coughing. He's saying excuse me.
Man,
He's back
I'm looking for a cough drop around here somewhere.
He's coming back.
That's right. Sorry. I'm going to look for a cough drop real quick. Jeez, oh man.
Yeah, no worries. That's the beauty of editing. I'll just cut that right out.
It's funny. Maybe a piece of gum will work. We'll see. Sorry. I know how that sucks having to. You're like, well, there's an edit.
It's all good, buddy.
It's always nice when they go like, you don't have any notes after it. You're like, oh, this is sweet. This is perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
So is there actually a way to train for that type of pressure with eyeballs on you, or is you just kind of dive in?
Yeah, you have to just do it. It's funny because I'll be trying to convince people to come, and you see on all these forums, like people start talking about like the pressure and what to expect. Everybody that goes for their first time comes away with it like, wasn't expecting that. Like that was crazy. So it's just, you can't even put it into words. Yeah, you just got to go.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. It's just such an easy way to get 60 high pressure arrows done. And it's amazing. Like last year I had a notebook and I wrote down 1 through 60 on the vertical edge of the paper. And I'm like, I'm going to document my thoughts and my feelings about every arrow during this competition. So you stand up, you shoot 3 arrows, you come back, the next line gets up, they shoot their 3 arrows, then you go pull your arrow. So you have a little bit of time. And so I'd shoot my 3 arrows, I'd come back and I'd like document like, how did number 1 go? How did number 2 go? And it's funny because I like was looking at super optimistic in the first 20 arrows. And it was just like, got to do this better. Got to do this better. And then by the time I got to like arrow 30 and 40 and 50, it was just like my notes became fewer and fewer. And it was just like, I want this to be over. This is a shit show, right?
It was just, scribbles and crossouts.
It was just dumpster fire, right? You know, and you can't get that, right? You have a deer in front of you and you blow the shot. You don't have the opportunity right away, most times, to rectify that and learn and go, okay, what did I do wrong? Let's hypothesize what the issue was. Let's load up another arrow. Let's shoot it again with the same level of pressure. You just don't get that opportunity. So going there to somebody like somewhere like Lancaster, it just truly is, it's the gridiron. It's like where improvement happens, because you might fail your first 10 arrows, but there's an 11th and there's a 12th and there's a 13th arrow, and you get to do that 60 times. It's a lifetime of bow hunting in one weekend. And it's so cool.
I've never personally done a competition like that, but do you feel like there's any sort of transferable use for that type of pressure training into the bush, or is it just a completely
Absolutely. Oh, there's it's definitely different type of pressure. Like I can say it's different, but I can say there's nothing I do with a bow in my hand that gets my heart pumping, my body shaky, like those high value arrows. There's nothing I do other than competing that is that close to hunting.
Right.
And sometimes the feelings I get on the line at Lancaster are worse than a deer standing in front of me. One of my good buddies, Christian Wilder, he's killed so many deer with his bow. It's unbelievable. This dude is just black death to deer if they're within 20 yards of him in his recurves. He went to Lancaster one year for the first time, and he's like, I'm not joking, that the targets are like strobing in my vision right now. My anxiety and my adrenaline is going so much. He's like, I can't, I've never felt this before. And so sometimes it's worse, it's a more extreme case, which also has its benefits, right? If you do feel this high anxiety, high amount of pressure at a tournament, that's just going to make hunting easier. You can still work through that stuff, right? And I highly recommend it. Even if it's a local club, just regularly getting on the line with a lot of people, and you're most of the time you're probably going to be the only bare bow or traditional archery guy there on the line. Yeah. So it's like you want to represent well, and so you're always in the back of your head. Like, it's just, if you're shooting a single string bow, they're not that common around the clubs, and so people watch you. And they'll end their ends early. They go back and they're standing behind you. They're just watching like, oh, look at that recurve. Oh, that's cool. Look at that bare bow. Look at that trad bow guy.
Yeah.
And their eyes are on you. It's just good pressure training. I'm a high I push getting people into high pressure shooting as much as possible, for sure.
Yeah,
I highly
that's
recommend
pretty
it.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
Especially having to deal with like the peer pressure to, it's like standing in front of a classroom giving the speech. Too.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Yeah.
Just the eyeballs on you changes
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
There's no judgment in the woods other than your own self, right?
That's right. Yep. Absolutely. You're exactly
awesome.
right. Yeah. It's great.
Matt, it's been the best having you on the show, buddy.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. It's great. Great. Love it.
Well,
Thank you.
What I'd love to say is, I really appreciate everything you're doing with the push. The P.A.C.K's awesome. Is there anywhere that you want people to go to and check out while, just give your shed ass and your plugs?
Yeah.
Not that we haven't plugged.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This whole show's been a plug. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the pusharchery.com is our springboard for everything. We have an embedded audio player for all of our latest podcasts there. All of our videos play there as well. If you don't want to have to go to YouTube. And then also there's buttons and links everywhere to get to the online school as well. So head on over to the pusharchery.com and you'll see everything and all the things that we're into. And then on Instagram and Facebook, it's just the Push Archery. So pretty simple.
It's pretty rad, man. I really appreciate your time, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Had a lot of great time. Thank you.